Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good.
How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Hopefully, you can hear me. I did a podcast this morning with the Beginner Photography's podcast, so I had all this stuff set up. Oh, well, you know what? It's just showing me live with you on the screen already. So we're just going to stay this way and we'll just chit chat as people pop in here because they
Okay.
changed the interface on this, like, I don't know, like a
Oh,
couple,
really?
yeah, it's like a couple weeks ago, and I can't figure it out yet. So.
Yeah, I can't. I've never used this before, so I couldn't figure out how to put the restream on my channel as well. So I gave up after about five tries.
That's how that works. It's technology. We had this morning during the podcast with Raymond. He was like, "I'm like, I can barely hear you," and he's like, "What?" So he's like changing his gear around and all this stuff, and it wouldn't work, and we couldn't get it to work, and I think we blew a half hour just getting gear to work, and it we both have done it a million times, and it worked. So I don't know, but I finally he's like, how are you doing this? And I'm like, running through Zoom. And he's like, what? Your Zoom recorder? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh. He's like, you've got an interface. I don't see what's going wrong. I don't either. So ended up, all we had to do was literally unplug my head set to from the device itself into the MacBook, and then it worked perfectly fine. And then away we went. So I don't know.
Oh God.
Technology.
Yeah.
You gotta love it. Gotta love
And
technology.
and as soon as they have it working well, they go in and screw around with
They do, they do, they do. God, that was like Facebook. You used to be able to stream right to a group, and now you can't. And there's all these workarounds on YouTube's, and I don't like workarounds because there's theory and reality, and I will tell
it.
you which one always wins, and it's not theory. So
Really.
I don't know. At least we got one person like hanging out somewhere in the world out
Good.
there.
Well, hopefully we get a
Let's.
few people.
Oh, we usually do. They usually hop on at the kind of after we get started and so on and so forth. I thought I was going to get a notification like Zoom, like you're in the waiting room, and I was waiting, and I flipped to a different screen. I see you really tiny on the screen, just patiently waiting. I'm like, oh, I got to just get
Yeah.
him up on the screen.
Oh, by the way, if you haven't shipped my book, will you sign it for me?
I will sign it. Yep, I ordered books and they're not here yet, so I will sign it for
Oh,
you.
okay.
And thank you. So thank you for your order. Yeah, that's what we
Oh, no
talked about.
problem.
That's what we talked about today on the podcast with Raymond. He was wanted to know all my shenanigans with these book things, and I'm like, oh well, we can talk about it. So it always works. Well, let's now. I usually we got about 5 or 10 minutes, so or 5 minutes each. So sometimes people will chat in, and I don't see anybody chatting in yet. So oh well. So
Let's see. Private chat? Is that what we
yeah, I think so. I just have one that says chat. Um, you might have a little bit.
did that go in the
Oh,
regular
the
chat?
nope. Oh no, that's why, because that's the private chat. So that's probably between you and me. The chat over on my right side
Okay.
is the stuff from YouTube and Facebook that will come across. So I
Okay.
don't know if you can see that, but if we got any
I
questions,
can
I'll
see
throw them
the
out there
chat,
as
but
well.
I don't see a window where I could type into it.
Oh, interesting. Let's see. Oh, can you see that? I just overlaid the chat. Pamela said, leaving my
Yes.
vacuum to join. LO.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it up there and then we both can see it. We'll both play this by ear. That's the best
Okay.
thing. So, uh, yeah, Pamela, yeah, she's always on. I'm glad we're interesting enough so she can leave her vacuuming for the evening. I mean, what a shame that she has to stop vacuuming.
We could make
Oh, we got
vacuum so it sounds like she's still doing
yeah.
it.
That's what I should have done if I would have known. I got
Really?
that PodTrack P4. Yeah, the PodTrack P4 that I have, you can actually like download like sounds onto a memory card and put it in there, and then when you want it, you just hit like A. You've assigned it, and it'll make the noise.
Oh wow.
It's I got it when I tried to podcast, and it's an interesting piece of equipment, and it's I can put up to what I think it's what 1, 2, 4 mics in it, and I control like all the volume and everything from it. And it's like a portable, like recording device. I can take it on the road with me, and as long as I have 2 mics, I could do an interview somewhere. It's pretty
Oh,
cool.
that's cool.
Yeah, they once the podcasting world got like super kind of popular again, people they came out with that one because a lot of people were using the handheld Zoom recorders for the longest time, and then like so. We'll have to see who else pops on here. Sometimes I swear face or this software does not tell me everyone who is on. And then all of a sudden it will like, because when I said I had like 2, yeah, there's like 20 people. There's more people chatting in than the number of the little number next to my eyeball. It shows me how many people are watching. So, but that's, I guess that's technology. It's technology. It works when it works and it doesn't when it doesn't. I should stop clicking those tabs because I'll probably throw a wrench in this whole thing and it will just go haywire and shut everything off. Like you said, just when you get it all figured out.
I was just in a chat on applying for Guggenheim's. It was kind of interesting.
It's my child. Shut my door. Oh. Jeez, interrupting in the middle of a live. Oh, well. You said Guggenheim's you're applying?
Oh, I don't know. I thought I'd just look into it and see the ins and outs of them. And it was put on by the Center for Fine Art Photography in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
But it's nice. You know, actually, all the notes I was making was more about me and rewriting my project statement than it was the Guggenheim. But it's always interesting.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things. I finally today after the whole trying to figure out if my email was not working or not. But I finally, F-Stoppers finally approved all my stuff. So I can actually start submitting material to F-Stoppers now, which will be nice.
Oh, cool.
But, yeah. So I've come to conclude the harder I work at something, the less I'm in my life.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Oh, God. Visitors. No one ever stops by in the middle of a live until today. So, yeah. That's what my child wanted. But no, go. I'm trying to talk. Jeez. So both. Shushu. Go watch on your phone. Gee, many Christmases, people. So where was I? Oh, yes. So, God, now I totally lost train of thought. That's why it's like squirrel brain. God. Oh, yeah. When I try the hardest at things, it's like, oh, I'm going to try all this and do all this stuff and pitch this stuff. And then they're like, thanks, but no thanks. And then I just send 1 2-liner email. Hey, are you interested in working with me? I'm kind of interested. And they're like, sure. So I need to stop working so hard and just let it happen on its own, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing that in this Guggenheim thing they were talking about was that they felt that you should really get rid of all the photographic languages and all talking about your project and just talk really down to simple terms. And one of the women that had gotten a Guggenheim said she used to write stuff and then go down to the local diner with all the truckers and all and read it to everyone and see if they could figure it out and all.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
That's how she got to the end, or I mean, the final version. I thought that
interesting.
Was cool,
yeah, I was kind of like, there's like this 45-minute video I have to watch. It kind of like explains how they do things and how they like people to write and kind of do some stuff. And it was interesting because it's kind of that same mentality. It's like, keep it simple, keep it educational. Oh, hello, Peggy. Peggy is always on here too. Oh, Pamela says Blue Angels on lacrosse next weekend. Should have told me that, Pamela. I work. Now I want to do something. I am going to go out to the airport tomorrow. They have the B-25 out there with the commemorative Air Force and the tri-motor Ford airplane. So I'm going to go out with Corey. I wonder if Corey might be one of the 7 that's on here. Hey, it's Trent. I figured Trent would be in here, or should be, right?
Yeah, it's a shame I can't type back to them.
I know. That's the same thing with me. it's like I can type a message, but it just goes somewhere. Oh, there's Corey. So, well, we got 7 on here. So you know what? And it's 8:03. Might as well just start rolling. So, yeah, well, a little different than normal because I expected to have us a nice countdown and we could chat in the background. And then guess what? It didn't work per usual. So we just rolled with it. So, oh, there's Paul. So, yeah, we got Paul and Corey and Trent and Peggy, Pamela. And there's a couple other ones out there, but who knows? But yeah, so I was, as everybody knows, I was kind of slacking over this last like 8 or so months of doing this consistently, and finally got back into the groove of it, which is nice and fun because I have lots of projects. And I think this year I'm trying to like kind of on the realm of what we're talking about tonight, projects is kind of like I need to find projects I really want to work on. So I'll probably be writing for F-Stoppers and the new Photographer's Lounge I created, and then needing to create images, I guess. So yeah, so I was just trying to think, Robin, how I came across you, and I think it was Trent. Trent's like, you got to talk to Robin. Then we hooked up on Facebook and started talking, and then the Midwest Photo Group, and I thought, you know what? Robin would be awesome for this. So I'm always looking for guests. So I might as, oh, you're welcome. So I'm going to let you start out, Robin, and tell the whole entire world all about you, how you got started in photography and that whole 9 yard and whatever else you want to say.
Okay, well, let me think about that a second. I guess growing up, I never had a camera. And when I got into college, I always liked images and all. But like everyone else, you know, I went out and bought a camera and started taking it with me all over the place and taking pictures of anything I could think of. And like most people, I think most photographers go through stages where they, you know, are just like taking pictures of anything. And then they, you know, those people that want to go beyond that and make images that matter, I think then they start in looking at other people's work. And then they have a period of taking pictures of pictures they've seen. And some people just stay there, and that's okay. You know, I think, you know, everyone uses a camera the way they want to. And as long as they're happy, that's half the purpose, you know.
It is.
But I think, you know, once you really start thinking about your work and trying to understand what it is you want to photograph and all, I think that's where the idea of projects really come in.
Oh, yes.
And for me, it was probably about 1978 or so in there. And I was still shooting with 35 millimeter. And I had a couple shows of work, of color work, believe it or not. And, you know, I was talking to some people in Michigan, photographers at Kalamazoo, and I lived for a year in Muskegon, Michigan, and I would drive down there to talk to all these guys almost every weekend, it seemed. Because for me, when I get interested in something, I get totally obsessed with it. So I'm usually researching, reading, looking at stuff, and that's kind of helpful, but it makes it hard to do several things at once.
Yes.
But I think when I really started to change, I had moved to 4x5 because I thought that was kind of cool. And, you know, I was shooting landscapes and towns for the most part. And I just wanted that higher resolution, and that seemed to work out. And then I met, well, through my friends, I met Frank Golke, who's, if people don't know who he is, they really should look him up. It's Gohlke. Probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, and certainly one of the best photographers. He's truly amazing. And I met him, I guess 1982, and proceeded to go to a couple week-long workshops with him in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. And Then I talked him into doing a show at or a workshop at Kalamazoo. So obviously I attended that as well. And in the meantime, I moved to Chicago, where I am now. And but Frank just made such an impact. He could look at people that were accomplished photographers or people who were just, you know, taking some snapshots, and he literally could pull the essence of what they were doing. And I think he probably surprised quite a lot of people. But I was amazed that he really understood what I was trying to do. And we spent every night after the workshop actually ended till 2, 4 in the morning talking about photography. And that was really priceless. Like I said, he's an amazing person. And I got to see, you know, he was doing, well, at that time he was working on his Mount St. Helens work. He was basically documenting the eruption and the restoration of the area through nature, through man. And there were all these interconnecting themes throughout the work. And it was really amazing. And he read just so much. I mean, he could tell you, you know, whether it was a clear cut area or something that the volcano blew over. And he actually talked to the loggers and got to know them. So he was very, very involved in what he was working with. And I think that's essential. He went back to Mount St. Helens, I think 5 or 6 years in a row as part of this project. And Frank had always kind of worked in projects. He did, for a while, he was shooting grain elevators, which he's kind of famous for. And then he did a kind of a weekend project of the tornado that hit Wichita Falls, Texas. He had, he showed up there. That's where his parents live, by the way. And he went there not knowing that there was a tornado. And they had the tornado, and he had 40 sheets of film with him, with his Linhof 4x5, shot them all the next couple days, and some amazing photographs. And then a year later, he went back and tried to shoot the same exact photograph. And sometimes he couldn't because there was a building where he was standing or whatever. But it was really quite amazing. The first year he had a shot of this whole street that was just totally leveled, and there was a gremlin car in this tree outside this car. And the following year there was a brand new gremlin in their driveway. It was so priceless. I just thought that was great. And one of my favorite images of that series is this little kid is playing on this sidewalk, and he's got his little toy men and everything there, and behind him is just mass destruction, you know. And it's like the kid's looking up going, I had nothing to do with that. And you know, one of those nights when I was talking to Frank, I asked him, you know, I hate to say this, I don't know how you'll take this, but there's a lot of humorous aspects to a lot of your photography. And he goes, yeah, there is. And it's like he was well aware of it, but it's not something that he talked about. But he goes, yeah, that kid is pretty priceless, isn't he? I'm like, yeah, he is. But so that was my introduction to projects. And from then on, I tried to figure out what I could shoot that I knew. And I went to Elgin, Illinois, and shot a couple rolls of film on my 35 millimeter camera. And I came back and I developed, I'm looking at the contact sheets, and it just hit me. It was like, I know this place. This place is the same type of neighborhoods that I grew up in, you know, in Ohio, which is where I'm from. And from that day on, I basically shot Midwestern neighborhoods and
Mm-hmm.
towns. Few years later, I got married and gave up my whole life for quite a few years. And now that I'm not married anymore, I've kind of found my way back to photography. And, I find myself shooting the same stuff, almost a lot of it. And, but that's my project now is Midwestern neighborhoods
Mm-hmm.
and towns. And um, they just speak to me. I mean, I understand those types of neighborhoods. They make me feel good when I walk down the street. Um, I read a lot about the Midwest and the Rust Belt and the downturn in the economy, and I can put myself in those people's places. I mean, you go to towns now, like I was just over on the eastern part of Ohio in East Liverpool and all along the Ohio River. And I remember those towns as a kid or when I was in college playing in a band, or even before college, I was playing in a band. And we would play all those bars down there. And so I had a lot of insight to those towns. And, these people, they're trying to survive. And sometimes, I think a lot of people, look at them and go, oh, those are poor people and we don't care about them and all. And it's like, no, they're really not poor people. That's just the way the economy has gone. Back
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid, really rich people might have made a few $100,000 more than the other people in the factories. And now they're making 50 times and all.
Yeah.
And where did that money come from? Well, it came from all those, what we used to think of as the middle class, and now they're all poor. And they're
Mm-hmm.
just struggling, but somehow they're surviving. And someday I hope the world and America will change that, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And it's really a shame because that was to my thought, that was the essence of America,
Mm-hmm.
where everyone had a chance and you could get a job. But you talk to the people in Youngstown, Ohio, you know, kids my age in the 70s, they just expected to go to work in the mills like their dads.
Mm-hmm.
And then, 5, 10 years later, the mills were an empty field. And what were those people going to do? Well, you ask some people and they'd say, oh, why didn't they just go to Harvard and become a computer scientist or something? Well, the world doesn't work that way. I mean, these
Yes.
people, that was their neighborhood, that was their town. And it's very scary to move away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that do, that's great, but there's a lot of people that just aren't capable of doing that. And what is the whole town of Youngstown going to move away?
Yeah.
Well, then you're going to have nothing, and that almost happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really interested in not new buildings and not new towns. I like the towns I grew up in, and that resonates with me. And I have a lot of affection for those towns. And like I said, I just walking down the streets, I feel like I'm home, whether it's in Nebraska or Indiana. It's the same neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a little worse for wear. And I think in my work, I try to pick on those buildings or spaces in the neighborhoods that talk about when things were better or that they're just surviving in this world that would rather just bulldoze them and put up a concrete box.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that happens less and less, because you look at some of these buildings and even some of the homes, I mean, they don't make them like that anymore.
They do not.
So that's kind of my shtick in a nutshell, I guess.
I kind of what you're saying like a little bit ago about, your environment. I always say, you kind of start photographing kind of what you're forced to photograph to a point or what you know. I was talking about that on the podcast this morning with Raymond and how your environment, he asked like, well, how do you start? Why do you photograph the Midwest? And it's like, well, it was kind of a necessity, really. You're at a point and nowhere else to go, so I started photographing it. So it's interesting that you said that.
Yeah,
So I was
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go for it.
Okay, well, what I was going to say was I think it's very important that you understand what it is you're photographing and why you're photographing.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you have your project. Now,
Yeah.
you can work on several projects, but going to Iceland to take some pictures to me is not a project. To me, I don't know how people can just walk into Iceland and take meaningful pictures. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they take some really fantastic pictures, gorgeous pictures, but they have no understanding of those pictures whatsoever. And I'm not sure. I could probably argue that there's not much behind those pictures. They're pretty pictures.
Yeah.
Do they talk about anything else? Well, I would say no, but I'm old and settled in my ways.
That's okay. No, I mean, that's a valid point. It's kind of what you're saying, a lot of the towns you go to and photograph, and it's kind of, people don't move away, or the people, they can't move away in a sense. And a lot of what you just said, that's reminded me of my entire Route 66 trip, because there are so many towns that are hanging on by a thread, barely, and they're still there because they want to be there, and they see all this hope that, they just need one person to buy that tiny hotel on the edge of town. It's got a pocket full of cash to make it a tourist destination again, and people come in, and a lot of those people, I mean, where else are they going to go? They're, like you said, they're not going to go to Harvard to be a computer scientist by any means, but they do what they know.
I think people in general, at least the people I know in the Midwest, they're very practical people.
Yes.
And they're not going to take too many chances. And, it's just like I look at New Orleans after Katrina. Everyone said they should just blow up the city and everyone should move away. And I'm like, how can you even be, obviously you know nothing about New Orleans, or you wouldn't say stuff like that. That's their life. I mean, there are things that happen in New Orleans that happen nowhere else in the world. What, they're just going to all just shut the door and move down to Cleveland?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
It's not going to work, right? No, it's kind of like,
won't. I grew up near Cleveland, and we didn't have Mardi Gras Indians. We had the Boy Scouts. It doesn't even compare.
Does not. No, it does not. No, I was just, and I sent you over some of those questions I was looking at. I was reading through some, but let's see. So I'm just curious, how many projects do you work on like what at one time?
I don't try to work on a lot of projects at one time. I mean, really, my major project is probably a project for life. I can't see myself not shooting that. But and most of the projects I get involved with are kind of offshoots of that project.
Yeah.
And last year, God, it seems so long ago. Last year, I started a project on revisiting places in the South that had significant happenings during the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. And I knew I was probably going to shoot it just about the way I shoot everything else. And I went down on 2 trips, and I got some decent stuff. But once again, there's that thing, I've been in those states, but I was never in those states. And, walking on the streets down there, you start to learn that if you didn't look at the cars, you'd swear it was the 1930s all over again.
Mm-hmm.
That nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And that's one project that I'm working on. Obviously, I have to travel there anytime I
Mm-hmm.
want to do that. So I'll probably be down there once or twice this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been hard going because unfortunately, so much of that has been tried. They've tried to just sweep all that history under the ground.
Yeah.
Say everything's hunky dory now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's anything but. And I see in America, there's this big, I don't know what to call it, big way we do things is we put up a monument or we make a little museum and then we say everything's great now, and then a bunch of rich people go in and steal all the land and you lose all the neighborhood. It's like Tulsa.
Yeah.
The Tulsa massacre in 1921.
Mm-hmm.
Those neighborhoods don't even exist anymore. I mean, granted, they burned them down and all, but in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, you go in on Greenwood and all, you'd never even know you were there. There might be one or two buildings left, but they got a museum. That's good enough,
Yep.
You guys are lucky we gave you a museum, is kind of what they say. And I see that a lot in Mississippi and Alabama. The movie The Help, they photographed in this little neighborhood. What's it called? Well, it doesn't matter. But it's pretty 1930s. I mean, they're just shotgun shacks, boarded up, sides, probably not a lot of insulation at all, maybe some newspaper and all. And they used that section of the street, and I'm sure they paid the homeowners, to use their homes. But when they left, it's not like it just, they left it the same way they found it, basically. And I was thinking, gee, you could have at least put up a couple windows or something.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that, but it makes it for great photography. But you start having to ask yourself, the question is like, what are we really doing? They complain that people just sit on their porch and do nothing. What else is there to do in Greenwood, Mississippi?
Yeah.
There's no businesses. Well, if you're lucky, you might get a job at McDonald's. And it's like that. I mean, I was in Canton, Mississippi, and I was going to take a picture of this church that was kind of a rallying point for the demonstrations that went on there. And I drove down the street and I turned the corner and there was an empty field and a pile of bricks. And that was what was left of the church. And that's our history that we're just bulldozing over, and I don't know how to deal with that. So I'm not ready to jump back in, but I'm going to have to deal with it at some point because that sort of thing really interests me. Like, why is it like this? And why do we treat certain people that way? And what can we possibly do about it?
Yeah.
But so that's one project I'm doing. And then I have a bunch of little projects that, like Elgin, Illinois has always been a special town for me. And I have a portfolio of just Elgin photographs. And then John Vachon, who is part of the Farm Securities Administration in the 30s and 40s, he stopped there one day and took I think it was a dozen photographs. And so I got all those photographs from the Library of Congress, and I started going around trying to find those structures. And quite a few of them have already been destroyed. the Watch Factory, which was the biggest blunder Elgin ever made in the 60s of tearing that down. But I did find some of the streets he photographed and some of the houses. So I've been using one of his photographs and my photograph today of what that scene looks like. And I'll tell you a little story. I was photographing a lot in the 80s in Elgin. And that's kind of where I started this whole thing. And I was walking down the street and I looked at this house and I knew this house. I'm just like, I know this house. Where have I seen this before? And it had some really intricate trim around the windows and all that made it very distinctive. And I went ahead and shot it. And then I thought a little more and I go, that's a John Vachon shot of this old grandma sitting on their porch swing on that porch. And I swear to God, the owners knew nothing of it. And I went and knocked on their door and told them, and they looked at me like I was crazy. But I'm like, this is an important house. This is like, John Vachon shot that. I'm going crazy. And they're, so I gave them a couple prints and they just were glad I left, I'm sure. But so I've been doing a little project like that. And there's some others. I'd like to go continue my Ohio River and Pittsburgh area project that I started earlier this year. And some of it fits into my Midwest photography. And then some I really can't claim because it's across the river. And I thought, there's a lot of really distinct thoughts here of all the steel towns that are no longer there. And that's where I grew up. I grew up around Youngstown. And, I think that would make a really good project too. But I think, like I said, there's a lot of different photographers and, projects don't even come to mind for some people. But for me, I don't know of any way else to shoot. And I think that's rooted in the fact that you can't just go somewhere and hope to get some photographs. I mean, you may, but chances are you're going to miss half of what you could have shot if you'd have done a little research and gotten into that so you know about it. I think that's really essential. You have to know what you're shooting.
Yes.
Or you're just making pictures of pictures again. And like I said, for me, that's terrible. For an awful lot of people, that's great. That's their reason for photographing.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't have a problem with it. And I mean, we could go across YouTube or Instagram and find some ungodly beautiful work. But that's as far as it goes. I like stories. I like, I'm a literature major.
Oh,
so,
okay.
The curse. But it's amazing how many photographers I know who were literature majors. Frank Golke, he was actually, when he started doing photography, he was working on his doctorate in English at Yale. Got writer's block and was really having a hard time doing his thesis. And guess who he meets? Walker Evans and Paul Campanegro. And that was about the end of it. That was the end of his English career. And from then on, he was in the New Topographic show. And that was his launch to fame, I guess. But had he written that thesis, he probably wouldn't have had that. So good for him. But, there's a lot of sensibilities from literature majors that, they're always looking for a story. And I think that's something, if someone's wondering how they should shoot or what they should shoot, I think they should ponder that, because it brings a lot of well, extra information, but it also, like some of my shots, I really like to create a scene.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just the building, and sometimes it's the space around the building. But
Mm-hmm.
it's always like a stage show or like a movie set.
Yeah.
And it's all there with no people in it. And you can do whatever you want, wherever your mind takes you.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring all the people in and have your
Mm-hmm.
own show there if you like. And I think that excites me to be able to create an image like that where people can start thinking about what's going to happen next. Who's going to come in? Why is this here? All these questions excite the hell out of me, and I hope people. I would say that's what photographers should do.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the image, say that's great. Okay, now what else does it mean? It's like
Yeah.
a novel where you have your story, but then you have the underlying thoughts in that story and the symbolism and all. And
Mm-hmm.
bringing back my literature background, we would spend weeks and years deciphering what these stories actually meant. And I think that becomes the real interesting part. And
Yeah.
I think that makes you a stronger photographer,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's not just taking a picture. It's not a thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
an idea. It's a story.
Yeah.
So that's important. And I think projects help you get to that point.
Oh, I agree, because when you, out of all the teaching and the people, and the questions I get all the time, I always feel like newer photographers, just people who do it for a while, and they're always struggling with, well, I don't know what to do. I feel like for me, when I've started focusing on a little bit more onto a project or at least a theme, I think it makes you a better photographer too, because now we're focusing on that one thing, and we're not, one day we're photographing a flower. Like you said, it's a photograph of whatever, a thing, versus a feeling or a place where you can start to dig deeper and peel those, outer layers back per se on an onion, and dig deeper into what you're actually doing. And I think that alone will make you a better photographer, all
Oh,
within
I
itself.
think that's key. That's what makes you a better photographer when you're
Mm-hmm.
actually thinking. And
Yes.
it doesn't
Yes.
have to be thinking about that scene. I
Mm-hmm.
swear to God, people talk about composition and all this other stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had my 4x5, I would walk down the street with the camera mounted to the tripod, holding it over my shoulder with a bag of film holders. And I would walk down the street and I'd be looking as I'm walking, and I'd set the tripod down and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people it's kind of like in the Deer Hunter movie where Robert De Niro keeps going around one shot. You only get one shot. And I thought that was really unique. And I'm not always like that these days because it's so
Mm-hmm.
easier to fire off a bunch of shots. And,
Oh, definitely.
I'm either photo stacking or focus stacking or something
Mm-hmm.
else. But it is the one shot. It's like you should already know why you stopped to take that
Exactly.
picture.
Yep.
Don't
Because
go hunting for it. It's too late now.
yeah.
I don't know. I guess you can do it that way, but it's like cheating the game for me. I
Mm-hmm.
really like that one shot. Just
Yeah.
by the time you set that camera up, you should know exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I
These
think.
people, I totally agree, because it's a lot of times too. I had a student in my technique landscape class with Paul's photo, and I was like, what do we struggle with? And just start throwing these, I can then, start wrapping this class around the information around what you guys really are here for, besides just information on what aperture and and ISO you need for a landscape. Let's go beyond this a little bit. And she had made the comment, she's, well, I never know what to take a picture of. And I'm like, huh? And it got me thinking. I was like, you don't know what to take a picture of. And I finally said it was like, well, what made you stop? And she's like, oh, it was the light in the tree. Well, there we are. That's what we're
There's
going to
the
take a
thought.
photo. There's the thought. Because we
Yeah.
don't go beyond. It's like, even a critiquing or looking into a photograph, it's like, I don't like it, they'll say in class. And I'll ask why. And then they're like, oh my God, I have to have a reason why. Well, if you don't like it, there's a reason behind it. So then you can start to figure out how to correct coming up with, I always say, a process is you're like, I don't like this photo. And you're looking at the back of the camera. Well, okay, why don't you like it? Well, I don't like that tree. Okay, let's ask ourselves a question. Do we need to add more of the tree, less of the tree? What do we need to do to make us like the tree? Maybe get rid of it all and just go through that process and start actually with intentionally creating photographs versus just, click and away we go. We move on and do the same thing over and over 14,000 times and then come back and say, I don't like anything on my memory card. Oh, well, it was a loss of a day. So it's creating photos with intent. I think that's what everybody needs to do more of.
Well, and I think, it starts researching and thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I use tilt shift lenses with my cameras, and it's a lot like shooting with the 4x5.
Oh, definitely.
But, I would use tilt shift once I set the camera down,
mm-hmm.
but then it becomes like, okay, here's my image. What do you leave in and what do you leave out?
Yeah.
You have a line.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that the end of the frame is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
You can ruin a good photograph by including too much that leads people's eyes away from what you're trying to show them.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite's true as well. And I think, I just think that you have to pay attention. You have to, I swear to God, I float through the world when I'm photographing. I don't really want to talk to anybody. I'll be nice and talk, but it kind of ruins the day, to be honest. But you can't be aware of everything if someone's sitting there talking to you. For me, it's impossible. And I think that's key. You've got to be there to do photography.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're there for, and what the subject is, and that's up to you. But you have to figure out what your subject is. And to be fair, beginning photographers, even, you could be at it for 5-10 years and not realize that that's what you need to do. And everyone goes through this.
There's stages.
You look at early photographs of anyone and you go, okay, well, that was close. Why did you take that? I don't know. Well, that's a fail.
Yeah.
If you're going to take a picture, you got to make sure you know why.
Yes. I totally agree.
In the long run, it makes it easier on you because now you're thinking.
Yep.
And I get a lot of people, they'll look at my photographs and they'll go, oh, those are nice houses. And I'm like, yeah, they are. But it's not about the house.
No.
It's not about the house at all, really. I mean, maybe a little, but and then I always like to, in some of my photographs, well, a lot of my photographs, I like to have that one little element that you have to pay attention to see. The toy gun on the porch or whatever it might be. And that might be the only reason you stopped. But now you're giving, here's the print of it, and I'm giving, what I'm trying to do is give everyone else the luxury of discovering that shot the same way I did, which I think is really cool. And if they can tune into that, then it's like they just turned the corner and saw it. And that's great. It's I know I talk a lot, but I got another story for you.
Go for it. I love stories.
I was in Elgin once with the 4x5, and I was walking down the street, and I set up the camera, and I was all set up. And the only reason I stopped, it was like a farmhouse structure on one of the back streets of Elgin. And they had these big plastic peacocks on their porch, on the walls of the porch. The only reason I stopped. I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. It was just so, I don't know, so indicative of growing up working class to have those peacocks on your porch. So I'm all ready to shoot, and I'm under the dark cloth there, and I'm just closing the shutter and everything. And this guy walks out on the porch, and he's watching me, and I'm kind of, well, can you go back in now? You've made your presence known. And he starts talking to me, and I'm like, okay, well, as soon as he goes, I'm ready. I can click the shutter. And he didn't have a shirt on. He had a coffee cup, and then his kid comes out on the porch. And we got to talking, and, I forget what we were talking about, but then I said something like, yeah, most people say I should go across the river to where all the rich people's houses are, but that's not my America. I don't know that. I know this. And he goes, yeah, people over there, they don't have cool things on their porch like these peacocks. And I about fell over. I'm not kidding you. Like, how could he be tuned into the same thing? And I was just cracking up laughing. And he goes, hey, do you mind if my son and I are in your picture? And I go, not at all. Not at all. So I took a couple prints back to him the following week, and the guy started crying. Mm-hmm. And he said, I've never had anything this nice of me and my son. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I could give you something, because you were really nice to talk to. But, it was just, it's those peacocks. And, 8 out of 10 people could look at that shot and never even look at the peacocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the only reason I stopped. So anyway.
That is great. It's kind of as funny as, finding that one little tiny object within a photo that you don't see. Because when I had those 2 prints up in Sioux City, and I was so loud in that gallery, I couldn't hear what this group was saying, but I think they stood in front of my Guardian of the Glacier print, which is the tree in Glacier National Park. And I didn't know you could talk about a tree so long, but man, they were like super in tune to this. And I would love to know if they were the ones that bought it, because I've never seen somebody so interested in one photograph, or for people to come and look and but it was nice that, they were looking in there. I don't know what they were finding, but I've seen that photo way too much on the computer screen looking at it, and to find that, I'm like, what are you seeing that I'm not? But there's got to be a story behind it. I wish I knew what it was, but
yeah, you should have just went up and got in the conversation.
I probably should have. They wouldn't have known who I was anyway.
Right?
So
yeah.
But
it would have been interesting to find out. Or are they tree experts or?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or glacier. Who knows? Right. Boy, there was another question I thought of a minute ago. So this is good. So on that kind of list thing. So I know a lot of people that watch the show, they're always looking for information, right? So if somebody's not really into that photo-based project, right? They're just kind of the find a photo, take it, and move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. What is a tip, or like, if you were like starting all over or telling somebody, hey, this is how to do it, what's like the best advice you could give them on that? On where to start?
I would say be quiet and just look and feel more. Sometimes the picture is about the feel of the light or the heat of the sun on you as you walk by. And that's a picture. Mm-hmm. That's more of an important picture to me than the actual object you take picture of.
Yeah.
Those things where you can almost feel the wind, or feel the, there was a photograph, I think Trent took it actually, where it was a winter scene, and it was just so perfect that I could actually feel what it felt like to be in that field, and that's special. So I think, it doesn't matter if you take one picture or 400 a day. You only need one, really, in the long run, but, I guess just slow down and feel what it's like to be where you are and try to figure out the essence of that. And that can be literally a flower picture. It could be a sunset, whatever you want to take a picture of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all valid. They're all
Mm-hmm.
pictures. People think I'm crazy, but I'll look at people's party pictures and all. Well, here, let me
Mm-hmm.
see them. And they go, "You don't want to see these?" I go, "Yeah, I do actually." You know, it's all information and it's all interesting.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one thing you really should think about
Mm-hmm.
and read. You know, it's really critical to know the technical things. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, definitely.
But at some point, once you have a decent feeling of that, or even before, start reading what other people think about their work,
Mm-hmm.
or just like I read books about the Midwest,
Mm-hmm.
and other sundry things. But I think, if you want to make better pictures, one, you have to understand yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and two, you have to understand the world that you're photographing. And I think
Yeah.
those are two important um, tips that I could give, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not so much that you're taking pictures.
Yeah.
Let that go. I mean, that's what you're doing physically,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to move a little to how it feels, how you feel, what's interesting about this. And like I said, it can be anything, but I think you should be in tune, or at least try to be in tune with that,
Yeah.
because that will make your pictures better.
Mm-hmm.
It really will. I mean, like everyone else, I was running around taking pictures of everything I could think of.
Oh, yep.
You know,
We've all been there.
my mother, 101 years old, she still has this picture of this beat up old bucket with some railroad spikes in it on the railroad tracks. That's the best picture you ever took. And I go, "Great, Mom, thanks." You know, but to her, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think
Whatever.
every photographer's mom probably had that at one point. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
sure.
God, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry I gave that to you.
I know, right? I know. I go back home. I think my mom still has some of my like early stuff, like high school work. It's like it's so nice to look at, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah,
It's just
really.
like that. That's not
Not
what I
for
used to know.
me.
That's not for me. But or I even God, I think I ran into one of my old high school teachers, and she was like, "Oh, I still have the Christmas card you did way back in like 2004 or 5, like when I graduated." And she's like, "I just love that 7-Up bottle." And I'm like, "I know what photo that is." And my God, it was with like the C41 process, black and white, and it's flat as flat can be. And there's nothing to it. And it was looks cool. Click. And wow, let's put that on a Christmas card this year for everybody. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, it's everybody's got those photos that still haunt them, I guess, but well, I'm gonna open it up and see if anybody has some questions
Okay.
that they want answered. And we'll see if anything pops up. I know Tom said, he goes to new places. He'll look at Flickr to see pictures from an area and try to improve on them. And he goes, "Is that wrong?" I don't think it's
Well,
wrong personally.
not wrong at all. I mean, it
Mm-mm.
depends on what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're the one that's in control. Make yourself happy.
Yeah.
I use Google Maps quite a lot. I'll
So do
walk the
I. I love
streets of
that.
towns. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spend half my nights walking towns,
Mm-hmm.
but and I'll like take some screenshots of several, but I'm really looking for what that neighborhood is like,
Yeah.
rather
Yep.
than trying to set up a shot. Because in
Mm-hmm.
Google, their camera angle is so tall. Once you get there, it's not going to look anything like that anyway.
Oh no.
But it'll get you in the right neighborhoods. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
back in my 4x5 days, it was just poke and hope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know that the working class neighborhood's probably, on this side of town, and so I'll go over there. And I was walking. Now I can't walk, and I can't hope that I just stumble into it. So I use Google
Right.
Maps a lot. It's real helpful. But
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong about photography. If that's what you like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, that's great. But for me, I guess I'm looking at something different. and that's okay too.
Hmm.
It's I don't really, um, I don't even have a commentary on that. Like I was telling you about
Yeah.
Frank Golke. Some of the pictures in that workshop, they were pretty
Hmm.
mundane.
Oh
But
yeah.
he would find the one thing in that photograph that was interesting and point it out to the person and all. So he
Hmm.
was really able to speak on their level, and everyone's at a different level
Oh,
or a different
definitely.
thought process, and
Yep.
none of them are wrong, and none of them are really better than the others. It's
Mm-mm.
just look at all the people that make millions of dollars, which I certainly don't, taking pictures of sunsets.
Yeah. Yep.
My God, they sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
people come to mind and they go, I don't want a picture of a beat up old house. Oh,
Yeah.
I can understand that too.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, what I'm saying is probably for me and people like me. Um, but I think it's no matter what you're doing, I think the more thought you put into it, the better most of the time.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think you start producing a lot better photos because there's that thought process of, what am I going to add, what I'm going to subtract, and are those decisions making a stronger image, or if I add this, is it a weaker image, and then just going through. And I think that's the biggest thing, and anybody can do is just slow down, like you said, because
Yeah,
we get
I think
all hyped up and we're at a place, and the first thing we got to do is fumble and get the camera out, and we're photographing stuff. We don't even just stop to look and see what's there. Nothing drives me more up the wall than I come back from a location and I'm looking at the photo that I took, and I actually see the photo I should have taken in the
in
frame, and
that
then
photo.
yes, in that photo, because I'm not going to crop in that much and then find out all that stuff. But it's just slowing down. It's like tripod. I hate the tripod, but that's one thing. Boy, it will slow you down all right to make you think and
Yeah, I don't
piece
ever
things
take a
together.
shot without the tripod,
Oh,
but that goes back to the 4x5 days. But one thing I would
true.
say to
Yeah.
Tom, you know, I have nothing against. I mean, I go places I've never been before,
Hmm.
but I'll tell you, it's the second or third time you go there that you really start understanding it. So I
Yeah.
would say, make sure you go back.
Hmm.
Give it a few months to a year and then go back there, and I'll bet you see things that you never saw the first time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, my Route 66 trip was kind of like that. That first day or so is like just getting acquainted with like this whole process and everything you're seeing and the people you run into. And then once you kind of, get into an area for a while and you start looking around and you're like, okay, you get acquainted and you start seeing things a lot differently, or whatever you're trying to photograph too. And that's one of those things is, Corey says, oh, you're going to want to go back to Route 66 again and again and again. I'm like, I don't know. Oh God, I could, if I had the money tomorrow and I had the PTO, I wouldn't be sitting in this office right now. I'll tell you that. So, there's places I want to go back to and I could just focus solely on that one area, and it's amazing. I like it used to use Google Maps because, I kind of look at photographs more from a research standpoint, or I'll pull up, Google and just see what's in the area, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and go from there because it saves so much time once you're there. And like you said, it's so different too when you get there. It's like a little scavenger hunt.
Well, yeah, but you can. I mean, if you're looking for big city buildings with glass and
Yep.
all,
Hmm.
Google Maps will tell you where they are. They
Yeah.
might not tell you the shot you want, but you'll
Yep.
get in the neighborhood real quick. And
Yeah.
and that's just more time you have to photograph.
Hmm.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can't tell you back in the 80s how much I'd walk 4 or 5 miles lugging that damn camera around and all, and I might not shoot anything
Yeah.
because it just wasn't the right neighborhood. And I
Hmm.
didn't know how to find that neighborhood
Yep.
sometimes. It
Hmm.
didn't go with logic.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, that's important. It's a good
It
tool.
is. It is. It's a nice tool. Anybody else? Like somebody else is bound to have a question. I know there's always somebody the burning question. They're hoping somebody else is going to ask it, so they don't have to. So give it another shake or two, and we'll see. But It's, well, let's see. I don't think
Oh,
I've
come
got
on. I
any.
must have said something stupid along the way.
I know, right? Well, I got done with my the podcast today with Raymond. He's like, "Is there anything you said that you want taken out?" I don't remember 5 minutes ago, so hopefully I didn't say anything stupid.
Really?
So I'll leave it up to you, sir. Um, so
Ever
yeah,
forward.
yes. He was like, he's like, "How'd you think it went?" I'm like, "Oh God, what does that mean?" I'm like, "I think it went pretty well." He's like, "Oh, it went amazing," and I'm like, "Oh, great, good," because I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd get going on my tangents. I'm like, did I really answer that question or not? And I'm like, if he's got a follow-up question, he'll ask me. So,
Yeah.
Oh, come on, peeps. Somebody's bound to have a question out there. If not, I guess it is what it is. But, you know what? Talk about the Facebook group a little, because I don't know if there's people on here that are in it.
There probably are a few
So,
that aren't. A while ago, I started a group of on Facebook for Midwestern landscapes and architecture, and it's a pretty good group. I'm not sure how many members. I think it's 400 and some.
Mm-hmm.
In that group,
Yeah, there's some really nice stuff in there.
Trent, Giordano, we've got some people that do really amazing work. And I did it because I wanted to, I don't know, get people interested in shooting in the Midwest. I think in the photography world, it seems like the two coasts get a lot of, in the Midwest gets lost.
Always.
And so I'm kind of combating that a bit. But it's nice because you can, learn of places that you didn't know about before. And it's just nice to see work, whether it's bad or good. I mean, like I said, I'll look at people's vacation pictures for hours. Fine. But I'm always thinking while I'm looking at it, like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I love pictures, any kind of pictures.
Tom said, what did he say? Oh, it's I'll butcher. It's KEWPEE.
Kewpie, like a
Kewpie okay. Doll? Okay, that's what I thought. Yes, he just put your Kewpie shot is incredible.
Oh, so. That's Tom there?
Yeah, Nugent. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. That's been a real good image for me, I must say. And it was a lot of waiting till it got dark enough and people got out of there. And there was a big storm coming. In fact, after I think I shot, 3 or 4 shots because I had to shoot for the inside of the building as well as the outside. And right after I got done, it just poured. Which might have been cold, but by that time I was like, okay, I don't want to get soaking wet. I'm off.
Yeah, right. Always. Yeah. So the other thing before we wrap up here is tell people. I mean, you got your social media stuff, your website, and throw a plug out there so they can go out and look at your work.
Okay. Well, my website is robinwbailey.com, and my Instagram is just Robin W. Bailey. And come by and say hi.
Yeah.
I'm actually reworking the website right now, changing quite a bit of things. So hopefully I get all my work done by the weekend. So my Squarespace expert can throw this together then.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yeah. I think, I should learn how to do all this. And I don't think I really don't have time. I mean, I'm retired, but I'm still doing some freelance work for my old company. And I'm getting exhausted here. Something has to give.
Yes, always. Something always, has to give, unfortunately. So, well, perfect. Well, I don't think anybody's got any more questions. So thank you for hopping on here tonight. It was super nice.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's nice to have a different perspective than just me and things. So perfect. Yeah. Well, so we will wrap it up here. And as always, I think we had about 8 or 9 people tonight on average. Few came and went, but perfect. Well, I'm going to end the stream. And again, thank you, Robin, and make sure everybody go out and checks out his work. And if you got comments, and go join the Facebook group. It's a nice group. I need to get in there more and post. I just picky about what I'm going to maybe, nah. And then I come back and I never do anything. I just have to. So I was talking about today in the podcast, just sometimes you got to go do it. And it's like the YouTube I said I've been meaning to start for how many years now,
yeah,
so
you should
it gets
post
done.
stuff. It's just
Right.
a training ground.
Yeah,
I don't really take photographs seriously until I have a print in my hand. So
Yeah.
I'll put stuff up there that, and then someone will go, oh, did you mean to do that? Oh, no, not really. I print it differently now. But,
Yeah, right.
Thanks for the input.
Yeah, right. Always. Yeah, thanks. So, well, perfect. Well, I'm going to end the stream. And again, thank you, Robin, and everybody for helping on
Take
tonight.
care,
Thank you.